Reinforcements have arrived.
Welcome back, Commander.
Building.
It seems that we're starting off in a bit of a pickle. Most of the things we have are damaged. We've got a lot of starting funds, but we're already lacking power. And although we do have two very important chrono tanks with us, it doesn't really fill me with a lot of confidence right now. It doesn't help that there's also, 4 separate locations for the enemy to enter from?
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Probably 3, closer to 3 anyways, just because I can't see where exactly that mineral field is going towards in the south.
Affirmative.
But you never know.
Commander. Indeed.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
I never did enjoy when depending on the level, the way that the buildings are ordered just kind of always messed with me. I'm always used to just seeing power plant as the first building.
Unit
When the game decides to just turn the tables and, mess that up, it just confuses me.
construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Oh, and there's always like a weird interaction with getting your
Unit ready.
anything really, like any building built at or near the top of the screen that always doesn't work for whatever reason.
Unit ready.
And if you're wondering what that was, that is the M.A.D. tank.
Building.
Awaiting commander.
As you might be able to guess from the name itself, the mutually assured destruction tank is
Complete.
not nice at all.
Training.
I have to admit, it took me several tries to get through this mission, just because,
Yes, sir.
well, in at least one case there was some frustration.
Construction complete.
But the M.A.D. tank does exactly what you would expect after that showing. It destroys, damages everything on the map. And I do mean everything. It seems odd, just because it also includes Soviet buildings. So you'll notice after a while that some Soviet structures just kind of get self-detonated, almost. And this mission is kind of what you'd expect. It's a real meat grinder. You have to go through to 3 separate locations, infiltrate a spy in each of those buildings, and that eventually gives you the location for the factory that produces the M.A.D. tanks, which every time a M.A.D. tank goes to detonate, an Iron Curtain automatically defends or protects or heals every last one of the mammoth tanks nearby. Nothing else, thankfully, but it still kind of puts you on a rough timer.
Vehicle reporting.
If you don't come up with some sort of strategy to
Reporting.
eliminate that danger, so to speak, you run the risk of just having to restart.
Acknowledged.
Structure sold.
Okay.
Oh, and for whatever reason, I don't think I got a satellite, and I don't think I actually need the tech center anymore, because I can still build the chrono tanks.
Insufficient funds.
I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, because I know, if you lose your war factory, you can't build,
Yes, sir.
you lose all that production for your vehicles, so you have to rebuild the war factory.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure why I could still build the chrono tank, or the cruiser, but I'll take it.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Okay. Yes, sir.
I mean, on the plus side, it freed me of quite a bit of power, and gave me a lot of money back, so.
Waiting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Very well.
Speaking of money,
Reporting. Awaiting
I believe infantry doesn't take any damage from the MAD tank, which makes sense. Like, there's, think of like a earthquake. I guess that's still not like really all that great for why vehicles take damage. But regardless,
Awaiting orders.
the basic thing you want to just remind yourself of, or just think about from time to time, anyways, is the fact that the Allies do get the mechanic, which means if you're smart enough, your vehicles are effectively invincible. Obviously, except in that case. But you know what I mean. You get to keep your vehicles around and not have to worry about having to keep a service depot either alive or powered. So it's a good idea to invest at least a nice amount of money into getting some mechanics. And if you really have to, a couple medics will just make sure those guys live forever as well.
Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting.
Unit lost. Building improvement.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Mission sighted.
Waiting orders. Yes, sir. Yes, affirmative. Reporting. Vehicle. Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Knowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting orders. No.
So this island is supposedly the control center, but it's not like you can't really get to here. One, because I don't have the Chinook, and two, there's nowhere to land, and you can't teleport an APC with engineers. So you can't capture the building in the hopes that maybe you could produce your own MAD tanks. Which kind of sucks. It'd be funny if you could just build like 6 or 10 of them and just have them all fire off at the same time.
Waiting orders. Vehicle reporting.
But at least you can stop the Soviets from having their own.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, and one of the frustrating reasons for why I had to restart this mission,
Vehicle reporting.
well, to put it plainly, the chronosphere costs a lot of money. And while you do get one at the start, the Soviets typically send just about everything they have against it. Now, you won't see wave upon wave of tanks crashing against your defenses, or just driving past them simply to destroy the power plant, or the chronosphere, but they are going to throw as much of their air reinforcements as they can. So get used to seeing paradrops and parabombs dropping on it constantly.
Affirmative. Reporting.
And since the chronosphere is a fairly weak structure, it also means that if anything happens, such as a stiff breeze, you lose the $5,000 it costs you to build one.
Knowledge.
So imagine doing that once or twice, and oh, there's a double click right there.
Yes, sir.
But imagine doing it once or twice, and there you go. You've just lost a major investment.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. No.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Now, while we have eliminated the production, or at least so it seems,
Waiting orders.
the one downside is that this mission is a destroy everything mission.
Vehicle reporting. Knowledge. Awaiting knowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
And the Soviets aren't really much to, scoff at in this level anyways. There's some hefty defenses, which of course is at least one path to get around it. But,
Affirmative.
I mean, we've seen how destructive V2s can be. Heavy tanks are still heavy tanks.
Affirmative.
And with the added threat of such things as the Tesla Trooper,
Yes, sir.
you should always just pay at least a decent amount of attention.
Waiting order.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Yes, sir.
Especially Tesla troopers. They're obviously a new unit, and well, aside from some values and talking about their various like added lines and all that, the one real takeaway is that you can't crush them. So you got to be real careful about how you play around with vehicles against them. Whereas Jeeps, or I guess technically Rangers, are actually very good against infantry. Well, they're decent against infantry. The armor was never really good, so whatever. But if Rangers aren't really all that great against infantry, just because, again, of the armor value, Tesla troopers do really well against them. So it's, in a way, sort of a counter, while also not falling to the same vulnerability of just being crushed by a massive swarm of light tanks. And while it might not always seem that way, Tesla troopers actually can hold their own against such vehicles. Oh, and you'll notice that there were some little fireworks underneath some of my tanks there. Yeah, that's because the AI had some anti-personnel mines. I'm not entirely sure why they did, but maybe to stop spies, but I mean, why would you want to send spies to infiltrate an Iron Curtain? I don't know. Maybe it's to prevent the player from sending engineers to capture it. That seems like it would make a little bit more sense anyways. Sadly, this is the problem with any sort of RTS that asks you to clear the entire map and, not really give you a fun outlet for it, or maybe, I guess more specifically, like a good progression to do so. So that's why most of this mission is sped up. Like, once you get around the whole Mad Tank thing, which, again, I still think is a nice enough unit, or at least a nice enough gimmick of a unit. Once you get past that, you kind of have to settle for destroying everything, which we've done time and time again. Now, normally I'd probably just build a ton of chrono tanks, because it's, in a way, probably faster. But since I already have a cruiser, I might as well just chronosphere it, or chronoshift it, over to the bottom lake and have it destroy all the separate individual SAM sites there.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mission accomplished.
Commander, I didn't expect you for a couple of days. I was just talking about you to the wigs upstairs. I guess saving London from getting nuked was kind of an attention grabber. The Prime Minister just sent over a big basket of, I don't know, crumpets, kind of a consolation prize. You know, we get Poland, they get crumpets. Well, I know you have other missions that you've got to take care of. Don't let me slow you down. Keep up the good work, son.